Hi, welcome to the LaHave Islands Marine Museum. My name is Leah.
And I'm Morgan. We will be your hosts on the introduction to the history of the LaHave Islands.
The LaHave Islands consist of approximately 21 islands located in between Kingsburg and Broad Cove.
Unless you arrived here by boat, you would have traveled the Crescent Beach Road over the first bridge to Bush Island and then over the second bridge to Bell Island.
The history of European settlement of this area began in 1604 when Pierre de Monts and Samuel de Champlain led an expedition from France to the territory the French called Acadie. They discovered a group of islands in the mouth of the river and called it a bay in which there are a large number of islands covered with trees. Champlain named the largest island Cap de LaHave, which was later anglicized to Cape LaHave. On June 23, 1632, 3 French ships set sail for Acadia. After 7 weeks of sailing, the boats reached the mouth of the LaHave River. They chose a place to settle and named it Fort Sainte-Marie-de-Grace, which is where today's Fort Point Museum is located. The settlement at Fort Point continued until 1653, when it was destroyed by a fire. Fort Point Museum in LaHave has displays and artifacts from this early time in the history of this area.
In 1785, King George III granted the LaHave Islands and surrounding area to 6 trustees. Most of those families never settled in the area, and their land would eventually be auctioned off. The largest island is Cape LaHave, which is 2,608 acres of pasture land, forest, and beach. Cape LaHave Island was never meant for residential development, and squatters have occasionally been evicted. It has remained in its natural state for over 200 years. Prior to the 1900s, fishermen from Bush Island and Bell Island would live for weeks at a time in shanties on Cape LaHave, where they were closer to the inshore fishing grounds. Women and children would row out to bring food and supplies. This ended with the advent of motorized boats.
In recent times, the island has been primarily used by naturalists for observation of flora and fauna, but also by hikers and campers. In the past, it was used for a source of lobster trap supplies, fish drying and smoking, lobster processing, hunting, wood supply, cattle grazing, and vegetable gardens. In 1838, there were 20 families in total living on the 21 LaHave Islands, mostly on Bush, Bell, and Mosers Island, and as the years progressed, the island became a booming fishing community. By 1895, the population has increased and peaked at roughly 100 families. The LaHave Islands fishery consisted mostly of inshore fishing comprised of lobster, cod, halibut, haddock, herring, mackerel, and drop sword fishing. Today, lobster fishing is the main activity. During the early mid-1900s, there were 4 general stores on the LaHave Islands, 3 on Bell Island and 1 on Mosers Island. Along with the stores, there were also 2 schools, 1 on Bell Island and 1 on Bush Island.
There were also 2 churches on Bell Island. The First Methodist Church was a small building built in 1881. The church's congregation grew so large that the Beaner brothers built this new church to replace it for $2,500 in 1913. On October 12, 1913, the dedication service took place. In 1925, this church became part of the United Church of Canada. This church was used until June 12, 1975. Due to the declining attendance in the congregation, it was closed and later bought for $1 by the LaHave Islands Marine Museum Society. It opened as a museum on July 8, 1978. The first Anglican church was built in 1855 and was followed by a larger building in 1885. Following a fire, the current St. John the Evangelist Church was built in 1903. The church was regularly used until the mid-1970s, when the congregation became too small to support continued operation. In October 1977, custody was given to the Museum Society, which is responsible for its preservation. It remains a consecrated Anglican church in which special services are occasionally held. The declining attendance in the congregation was due to a number of reasons. The August gales in 1926 and 1927 caused shipwrecks where approximately 1/3 of the young men perished. During the 1950s, there was a drastic decline in fish stocks and the prices paid to fishermen, which made it difficult to support their families. Many moved to the mainland to find employment, and when the bridges and roads were built in 1978, opportunities were created for them to sell their prosperities to non-residents looking for summer homes.
The present-day LaHave Islands Community Hall has also had a diverse history, once situated on Wolfgut Road as a work or storage shed. For a period, this is where the caskets were built for the islands. It has since been floated to its present location. The main use was for the church hall. Today, it exists as a community hall, but is open for special events year-round and upon special request. On some islands, such as West Ironbound and Mosher's Island, there were lighthouses. Descendants of the Wolf family were lighthouse keepers for 75 years. On West Ironbound Island, the lighthouse was destaffed and automated in 1966. In 1991, Mosher's Island Lighthouse was destaffed and automated, making it one of the last functioning lighthouses in Nova Scotia.
Local boat builders Harris, Max, and Guy Bush built the Marime in 1946 in a boat shed next to the museum. It was built for Peter and Audrey Bush. The Bushes sold the boat to Ernest Baker, who named it after his wife, Vera May Baker. The Bakers ran the post office on Bell's Island. The boat was passed on to their son, Theodore, who sold it to William Mayer, a summer resident on Bush Island. It was later sold to John Fowler, who donated to the Avon River Historical Society in Avondale, Nova Scotia. They subsequently gave the Marime to us for restoration.
The Marime is a double-ender style Bush Island boat, which means her bow and her stern are curved. She is 27.5 feet long and 7.3 feet wide. The engine is an Acadian gas 5-horsepower make-or-break engine circa 1940 with an engine ram of 108 tons. Please enjoy your visit of our museum that displays the traditions and culture of the LaHave Islands.
Please visit our gift shop where you'll find many locally made crafts and books that tell the story of the LaHave Islands.
Our guides are here to help you, so don't be afraid to ask them any of your questions.
Thank you for visiting the LaHave Islands Marine Museum.